Welcome back, and welcome to the Technology and Developers track. For those of you who weren't here this morning, my name is Matt Hatton. I'm a director at Machina Research. I will be the chair for the session, this session between lunch and the afternoon break. You won't hear very much from me. You'll be glad to hear. You heard quite a lot from me this morning. All I need to do is introduce the speakers. Our first presentation is from Joe Dressler. He's going to be talking to us about new technology, LTE, the use of, hopefully, around 5G for M2M, that kind of thing. So Joe, over to you.
Yeah, thanks for the intro. So most probably you're surprised that I'm on stage because the agenda said something else. Unfortunately, the colleague from uBlocks got stuck in the air traffic strike of Lufthansa, so I'm the gap filler, sorry. But I hope it's fitting the stream, and I hope also that it is interesting for you to listen to. It's okay. The presentation was designed for a longer session, so I might try and skip a few of the slides. Now, I'm standing here for Sierra Wireless, but at the same time, I'm the treasurer of the M2M Alliance. I'm paying the bill after this show is closing, so I hope you feel all well here. Okay, so Sierra Wireless is an M2M centric company. We don't do anything else than M2M or IoT or whatever you want to call it, and globally active. Now, the topic is what does LTE bring to the M2M world? And M2M is very diverse. It's in all industry, energy, consumer, whatsoever. And where does LTE have this, the space here? Now, we're all talking about the huge numbers of growth, and the number is obviously growing every quarter that we look into a paper. It started with 12 billion, then it moved up to 50 billion, now it's 14.4 trillion. Not all of that is GSM or LTE, it's short range, it's Bluetooth, it's a combination of things. But I'm a believer that LTE is also going to play a major part in pushing that number up. Now, as a company, we believe that there is an end-to-end solution also necessary. We play the middle part. We are not the application. We are not the business analytics or whatsoever, but we're trying to be in between to enable a lot of solutions. And we also bet a lot on the Penguin to be the M2M specific OS to help driving this. Now, questions to the audience basically is, would you agree basically that M2M applications today are largely happy with 2G? And if you raise your hand, I would assume that a larger portion of you raise your hands if you agree to this, that most of the applications are happy with 2G. Well, that's, I would say, fairly the half at least. Would you agree that 4G devices are at least perceived as being too expensive to play in M2M? Yeah, I would say also at least 50%, if not more. And would you also agree that LTE today is mainly promoted for speed? When you look into your newspaper, into your mobile phone magazine, what do you read? It's speed. My impression, it's speed. Would you agree? Okay, then basically that says we don't need LTE in M2M. It's not the speed that we need. 2G is good enough, whatsoever. But let's see. Maybe we learn a bit. And there's a press release that I found from June, actually, that is driving the same topic. It is all about speed. It's faster, faster, faster. Nobody is talking about a lot of the other good elements that come with LTE and that might help M2M. M2M today, if you maybe compare just regions, in the US, 19% is already on LTE adoption. Europe is less than 2%. So that's GSMA numbers. Markets are different. But on the other hand, LTE is the technology that is picking up faster than any other technology before. So there's a lot of traction in the LTE space. If you then compare technology adoption, not everybody is jumping the LTE wagon at the same time. So there are industries that are adopting slower than others. But also, we have industries that already today look at LTE Advanced, so next generation LTE, that's barely becoming available to implement it into their solutions for 2017, 18, or beyond. So we don't have a homogeneous demand for it. If we compare, let's say, our rough numbers for what we sell in North America and EMEA, is exactly the opposite. So North America is a 4G market, while EMEA is still largely driven by 2G. And what we do in Europe is we carry a lot of legacy, because we don't give up any of the old technology. Different than in the US, it's a cut. It is, okay, we shut off 2G, we go LTE, and you customer better go with us LTE. We don't have that situation in Europe. So it's very difficult, let's say, to compare these markets, and also very difficult for the European market to bet only on an LTE-only solution. Now, why is 2G still widely used? Hardware pricing drives a lot of the decision at the moment. These are rough figures for high volume runners, and you might say, okay, I get a module for $5 in 2G, maybe somebody else pays $20 for 2G. Just to have here the reference points. Also, when you go 4G, you need a lot of other BOM components around it that make the solution maybe more expensive than a known 2G implementation. With 2G, you have design confidence. That's something that you do for many, many years. You don't need the bandwidth, so why would you go for an LTE device that is 5 times the cost of your 2G device? There's ecosystem constraints around it. 2G is basically available everywhere. LTE has still holes. So you still feel comfortable with 2G. So why should you go LTE? But there are benefits. First of all, LTE is not new. LTE is shipping since more than 2 years already. Sierra has crossed the 3 million unit mark last year, shipping LTE devices. So this is not a minority or a starting market at all. It has also proven that beside the bandwidth that it provides also a better bandwidth while in motion. So there are test cases where actually driving in a car, LTE keeps a much higher bandwidth while in motion. While at 3G, that drops off pretty fast. Low latency, that allows you really real-time applications, a real response, one-to-one when you need it, something that's not possible with 2G. Quality of service possible through the carriers. That's combined with the carrier. You can't do it on your own, but LTE at least provides the capability to separate services. And it is very network efficient. So the carrier has a lot of benefits in the backbone and routing the information on top of what you see at the front end. It's occupying less network resources, and it should be much more efficient. And it's the technology the whole industry is going for. So it's just a question, when can you afford it, and when does it make sense for your application? LTE has some limitations, obviously, in Europe. Coverage is not 100%. You still need fallback. And I think that is one part why it is still so expensive in Europe, as all the LTE modules that need to be provided need to have fallback to 3G or 2G. You can't do LTE only as you can do it in the US. And that is a bit of a drawback for a European solution. The other challenge is if you want to provide a global solution, you have to deal with 40 plus different LTE frequencies that are used worldwide. How do you combine them in a cost-efficient way on one radio? So there's still a few challenges to overcome, but it's possible to manage that going forward. LTE today, there are some areas where LTE makes sense and where people already use it. It's mobile office, that is what's going into your notebook, in your tablet, whatsoever. Video surveillance, but it's a small market. You could consider it niche. Digital signage, the same, when you have live stream going to signboards. Networking, call it also router and information distribution, is a volume market. And the one that is definitely on the hook of LTE is automotive. So any automotive project that is on the market today for 2017 or onwards deployment is largely LTE. We are moving towards LTE Advanced, LTE-A, not adding too much benefit to what we have discussed at the moment. It's more on the carrier side. They can give you even more bandwidths. They can use their infrastructure even more efficiently. And at the front end, it doesn't really change much. For the ones that are planning products 2017-18 launch, they will look into LTE Advanced 2 or 3 years ahead, and that is mainly automotive industry at the moment. Now, does 5G add anything? I would say what I found is it's mixed. The carrier community obviously says, why another investment? We already have enough. The others say, okay, we need to invest more. We have to continue the path. What it is, it's a clear path in all IP infrastructure. All IP for data, all IP for voice. So we're clearly moving away from traditional technologies, call it 2G or standard 3G. The world is moving to a full IP integration, and I don't think that we can hold it. So when we talk 5G, we talk about something like 2020. What is maybe more interesting for the industry, M2M industry, that doesn't need the speed and that needs a replacement of 2G, is let's say a low category LTE. Call it LTE Cat Zero, something that is okay for 1 megabit. It is all IP. It is power efficient. It's good for mobile or carried around devices. And that is something that has been accepted now by GSMA and ETSI as a standard discussion to get this on the road. So we have a cost-efficient alternative to today's 2G devices and can fit the LTE infrastructure. So you have the low latency, you are happy with maybe 1 megabit transmission speed, you have a good battery power efficiency, and you just pay maybe a little more than for a 2G device. And this is on the way. So we expect that between 2015 and 17, we will see first potential trials, and 2017 onwards, a potential mass rollout of such technology. Again, it's accepted for standard discussions, and it's a matter of time that this will hit the road. Actually, we started to push for that standard about 3 years ago, so it takes a long time to get things moving. So where can it lead to? A full integrated system, all IP, that doesn't just connect you with the internet, but it connects you to different services that can use different quality of service provided by the carrier, that has prioritization, that can talk on the one hand to a maintenance system, at the same time to an entertainment system. At the same time, it provides data to maybe traffic management or something else. And you have full flexibility in the, let's say, in the car, in the media device, or whatever is the remote device, to add applications like you do it today on your phone with the App Store. You might have a professional App Store, adding a traffic management system, adding a country-specific feature whatsoever, and your backend has full control between, let's say, the car here and the back end, all secured using internet security mechanisms, things that I believe we can control and we can manage. And with that, you can build a new ecosystem that provides maybe applications for cars. And the car maker, in this case, doesn't have to invent everything themselves, because we know that takes ages till they do something. This could also speed up maybe bringing applications into the field quite a bit. Okay, so in short, I believe, and also my company believes, that LTE will strongly contribute to the Internet of Things. It will enable a lot of things. We will be able to provide configurations that help to substitute 2G and 3G in a cost-efficient manner. Don't connect LTE with going forward. It will always be expensive. It will not. LTE will also help to address more consumer solutions. If we have the cost under control, we can connect the fridge, we can connect the AC, we can connect whatever you want. Today, the cost is one of the major restrictions. So we will be able to provide much more efficient and connected systems if we use LTE technology going forward. And yes, we believe it has a space in M2M, and don't disregard it, because today it's maybe a bit more it's too expensive than you would it would be allowed in your application. So welcome LTE in the M2M world. I think it's something that we have to consider, and it's on a good way. As I said, just my company sold already 3 million LTE devices going into various applications, and it's the fastest growth path that we have seen than any time before. Okay, so that was my gap filler. I hope it was not too boring. Still interesting. And maybe I have 1 minute for a question, if there's one.
We do. We have a minute or two for questions. If anybody has a question for Joe, then there's a gentleman here. Do we have mics around? I suspect we don't.
Yeah, but we have nobody carrying it around. Thanks for helping out.
Thank you. Actually, in the meantime, while you're taking that over there, I have a quick question for you, Joe. We've heard about switch off, 2G and 3G switch off in the US, which obviously is then encouraging the movement to LTE. What about in Europe? What's your feel for how things will go in Europe?
The market is completely different. In the US, we have 4 carriers, and then they, let's say, stick together in their policy, moving the infrastructure forward. Different scenario in Europe. We have 4 carriers per country. And even though we have carrier community, well, let's say, the bigger global players in there, also they don't have a standard concept for each that covers multiple countries. So competitive situation is different. If one decides to switch off, all the others will be happy to pick up the business. So I would say, yeah, the mechanism is different. Long term, LTE has too many network advantages that they can neglect it. The transition will be different.
Okay. And the question here.
Thank you. You have promoted this LTE standard, picking up in the coming future. What is your expectation with respect to the impact on the network infrastructure? Would it require dedicated resources from the provider?
No, so we don't, okay. So talking LTE-M, it's also addressing large-scale implementations like in the energy segment, meter reading and all that, where you have to connect millions of, in a way, millions of units to one network. We believe that the carriers can manage that, and that is why they also built LTE networks, because it's giving them different scalability and different, let's say, volume management. I don't think that it will end in network constraints. It will help. I think there are more constraints on 2G or 3G going forward.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Good. Joe, thank you. We're at time, but thank you very much. Much appreciated. So, round of applause for our speaker.
Okay. Thanks.